Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Assalatu salam ala Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Halim wa salim bikum. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi barakatuh. Lil Ikwani Wati fi Deen. Wassalamu ala mani tabahud lil Ikwani Wati fi Afrika, Europa, wa America, wa Caribbean, wa kulli makan. Inna niyote subhanahu wa ta'ala amtanani wa shukri. My dear brothers and sisters, today I'm going to talk about something that occurred here perhaps a month ago, and our dear sister in the United States reported it, and she didn't give any names, but she presented talk and banter from most likely politicals and those in who are aligned with the immigrants. You know what's going on with the immigrants and African American population, where immigrants have been given a lot of preferential treatment over African Americans, especially in Chicago and other places, and it's causing a big problem. And since the election has reoccurred, the re-election here of Trump, this stirred up some politicals and others. We don't have their names, but this banter has been surfacing. And the problem that we see is the race relations, in the United States, even after 1619, it's been very bad. And it's getting worse as we speak. Now this situation pop up where you heard me talking for weeks about the situation about our de facto citizenship. I had a good brother who comes on the show here in the chat, and he was talking about how he was saying that our citizenship is ratified and doesn't need to be ratified anymore. And I glad he gave me this information. And then he put it there, under the comments section. And he and I talked, wrote back and forth. And, but I made a point that Malcolm had said. Malcolm said that if we were bona fide U.S. citizens, we would not have the problems that we have inside the United States. Because if you look at those who quote unquote are real Americans, they don't have the problems that the Afro American has: housing, infrastructure, all this type of thing like this, health, and many other different aspects. So therefore, if we were American citizens, we would not have this problem. But since we are de facto American citizens, this problem has surfaced up. And let me see what we got here, come in here. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brother, Mustafa, Jazakallah khairan, Akhi Kareem. Thank you for showing up. Thank you very much for showing up, my dear brother. My dear brother, my rocking brother here, he's been a family friend for many, many, many years. Jazakallah khairan, Akhi. Shukran jazilan. And so our dear sister here, I don't know if some of you have noticed her. Let me show you here. You guys can subscribe. She looked like a Fulani sister, no doubt about it. I told her that, as a matter of fact, that she looks like a Fulani lady, and she's very educated on law and everything else. And she was talking about the situation that was brought to her attention. And you guys can find this on YouTube. And our dear sister here talked about the ramifications of if we can be deported from the United States and elsewhere. I'll get into this situation, talking about this on the surface. And if you notice, I put in my marquee, I said, don't laugh. Because the reason why I say don't laugh is because if the infrastructure and the power to be can place a man who's a convicted felon back into the White House, they can tweak the laws any way they want to get what they want. What makes you not think that they can't mess around with the 14th Amendment and to deal with you? See? And so that's why I would not think this is far-fetched. It should be far-fetched. But knowing the climate that we have inside the United States today, I wouldn't put it past them if they tried, because we know over the course of our history, we've been promised many things, and they have never delivered those promises, like the 40 acres and a mule and so forth and so on. We have not been promised those things. And I mean, we were promised those things, but they never delivered. And others were given, the American Indians, the Japanese, and others have been given reparations for what harm had been done to them. The American Indians, rightfully so. The Japanese who were interned, rightfully so. But how about us? We suffered just as much as our Indian brothers, maybe even more so, because we were taken forcibly from one land and brought to another land and had our cultures and everything stripped away. So this is, a vital aspect, that the Americans have always given reparations to those they harm, but they refuse to give that to the Afro American. And this is a glaring problem. And they refuse to give apology. They give apology to the American Indians. They give apology to the Japanese. They give apology to the Jews. All of these, they should apologize, but they have never, ever put anything in writing, even suggesting that to give apologies to the Afro American for the slavery and for enriching the Toubab population of America and enriching America, period. They have never given us this apology. So we see this situation as it is. So our dear sister was brought to her attention, and she said it was a combination. If you see her tape, it's a combination of those, and I'll get into this, who belong to Biden, not Trump. Can you believe this? Not Trump, but Biden. And then immigrant lobby groups who are pushing for the immigrants and so forth. And many immigrants have had clashes with Afro Americans in New York, Chicago, and other places. And many of them, have the same genocidal racist tendencies and notions as their so-called Toubab brothers. And they feel that we should be removed out of the land. And it's not right. Okay, it's not right. And our dear sister here gave a good address talking about this issue. And she broke it down very, very well. The Afro-American has suffered greatly. And here we have, if you look at these Africans born in America in the 1800s, this is how they look. Many of them look like they come from Nigeria. And we know a great portion of the population in the United States are Nigerians. Okay, no doubt. Igbo, Yoruba, Tiv, Fulani, Hausa, and so forth and so on. We know, and this is the 1800s, how many of our ancestral brothers and sisters looked as slaves. And so this is a depiction of them and so forth and so on. And they've suffered greatly. They suffered greatly, brothers and sisters. And they toiled the land and they enriched others. And you can imagine many died very young and they died unhappy, not knowing who their ancestors were, not knowing the language, and their religion was taken from them. And then they were cattle. They were, the threats against their life was always evident. So they suffered greatly. Here, I also want to show the Muslims. The Muslim Africans in the 1800s looked like this. They look like they're from Guinea. They look like they're from Senegal. Many of them look like they're from Nigeria. Many of them look like they're from the Gambia. I mean, they have all this look. This is the 1800s of Africans taken and brought to the Americas and now in America and so forth and so on. But many of them were still allowed to carry their heritage to a degree. So they wore kufis and other things like this to signify that they were their Muslim heritage. See, and so these ancestors of ours suffered greatly, brothers and sisters. Okay, and so this is why it's important for you. You can say, well, I don't care. That was then, but this is your bloodline. If you don't care, this is one reason why some ways we're punished inside the United States, because one, we don't care about our ancestral brothers and sisters. We don't care about Africa. We don't care about nothing. The only thing we care about is developing a relationship with the Toubab and getting money. and hoping somehow or another that the Toubab will become benevolent to create a brotherhood with him. After since 1611, that brotherhood has not happened yet. Now, this is a quote unquote African American boy. You can see here in 1863, he looked like a young Fulani boy. Now we understand. I showed you the statistics of how many, one of the leading groups of who were taken to the United States, especially in the 1800s, were Fulani. The Fulla people, the Fulla, many names we call ourselves, were taken from the corridor, from West Africa, from the coastal West African states, and brought to the Americas, and so forth and so on. I'm showing you this. You say, well, what's, yeah, okay, but this is, this is 2024. I don't care. Well, this is where you should care, because this is one reason why we're being punished, because you don't care nothing about what happened to your ancestors. Because if you did, you would have a different mindset than you have today. And I believe our ancestors never thought they would have a brotherhood with the Toubab slavers. See, and they didn't hanker for it. We are hankering for this relationship that's not going to happen. Here's an ancestral sister here in the 1800s taking care of a white child. You know the nanny, how we're basically create the nanny system inside the United States. This is evident of that. But if you look at our sisters in the 1800s versus our sisters today, they still have this West African type features. Look at the color. Look at her color. She looked like a sister, especially from Liberia or like from Cote d'Ivoire, something like this. Maybe even maybe the Fanti people of Ghana. They have more the African features than our African Americans do today. So the strong African, West African blood was still prevalent in our veins and our ancestors in the 1800s, evident by looking at her. See, and this young boy at that time, he's Fulani. There's no doubt in my mind about this young boy who was taken as a slave. He is Fulani. There's no doubt. And if you look over and over again, our African born in America, they look like they still have their African features more so than the African American today. The African American today is not quite as dark as he was in the 1800s and the 1700s, 1600s when he brought here. His hair is more curlier than it is, his hair is more kinkier than our hair is today. So we lost a lot of the features of our West African ancestors. In the 1800s, this West African look was still on us. And you can see this evident by this. And also here, 1800s, again, you look at our ancestors, our ancestral brothers and sisters, they still have the West African features to a degree. There's no one, genotype, or not genotype, but one picture or how facial type. But West Africans, we have a variety, but West Africans have a look about them that differ, just like the East Africans. East Africans have some look about them. You go down to Southern Africa, you look at the Zulus, okay? They have a certain look about them that's different. You see their face, a lot of their faces seem to be oval. You look at our Croatian speakers in South West, they look far different than the brothers in West Africa. And as you heard me say before, all we have to do is go in the eastern part of the Sahel. We go to Sudan, and we got blue and green black folk. They look different than everybody. See, so there's no one type, but the West Africans have a certain look, especially coming from Nigeria, okay, especially the Igbo and stuff like that. And then we have the Wolof, because we have black folk who are big and powerfully built. And I still contend that they were probably Wolof. See, so, but they still had and maintained the African features. Today, the African American have lost that. Let's see what here we got here. 3% of Africans came into North Africa. Yes, but I'm gonna get into this. 3% of Africans came into North. No. You better go look at my tape, my dear brother, because the 5 sultanates of Morocco were essentially coming from the Fulani and from the Siri, the Senike, and Bambara people of West Africa from the Takura region. And you also look at the Amazigh, who were Amazigh. And I'm going to show you something in a minute here to show you what I'm talking about. But I've proven this case already, and I'm not going to prove it again today. You have to go back and look at my tapes, because now you're trying to say that North Africa is pretty predominantly white. It's not true. It's yes, but they have African heritage. Before that, before the Africans began to go south, there was a large Black African population there, and they intermixed with the Melungeons who came out from Andalus. We know this to be the case. So this is not quite true, my dear brother. And let me ask again, my dear brother, please give your greetings when you come to the chat here. We are not Americans. We are not American cultured. We're not Europeans, the Africans. And I don't care if you look at the Christian, the Hebrew and the Muslims, we greet. Jesus alayhi salam. If you follow him, he said shalom alaikum. So greet your brothers when you come into the chat, please. Black Africans who were already here. Now you confuse it. Okay. You know what, my dear brother, we're talking about something that's happening in the United States. Please concentrate on that. I've talked about this issue about Morocco, and I will talk about it in another time. I've talked about what happened during the time of 7/11 invasion. I'm not going to try that case again. I advise you to look at my tapes on this. They're there. It's easy. Talk about Andalus. It's very, very clear. I give you all the proof. Okay, let's go back here. I wanted to get that. Where are we at? I want to show you something. Now, brothers and sisters, our dear brothers talked about the 3% of Blacks. This is in the early 1820s. They're Amazigh. They're Amazigh people, which the bad word Berber. Now, tell me something. Who do they look like? This depiction was taken by a slaver when they enslaved the Amazigh people. Now we understand in the Mauritania, which was no such thing as it was Maghreb Aqsa at the time, and they had other names for it. But they were enslaved, and they were near the coastal region. They were enslaved and so forth and so on, and they were Amazigh people. We know that the Amazigh people were taken because we had some that came back, and they were Black. The first major explorer who explored all the way from the eastern coast of the United States all the way to Arizona, where he put his name on a rock, was a Black Moroccan. We know the Portuguese took thousands upon thousands from Morocco. He did not take white Amazigh. He took Blacks. Again, as we talked about again, the Black people Black Amazigh were still predominantly than what we see today. There's no doubt about this. This depiction here showing you that they were taken as slaves. They were Amazigh people. So I hope we got that clear there. Okay, how can you deport indigenous people from their land? Low. Yes. Well, see, there's a contention too, my dear brother. And can I please? I'm going to ask you guys greet one another in the chat, please. You give your greetings. You can't do it, you don't show up. This is not something where we have hostility towards one another. This is my place, my show. I'm an elder. I want you to greet the brothers. That's what you're supposed to do. I always greet everybody. If you can't greet, then leave. You're correct. Oh, some names. Yes. 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 My dear sister, please, greet us next time. Okay. Thank you for showing up, but you're right. If you saw my mother, if you saw I did one about my family here about 6 months, you should see my mother. My mother, she had tremendously long hair, and all the relatives on that side, even my sister, had these type of looks about her. Now we understand, because they were full of people, and we know the full of were taken in droves back in the 1800s. So thank you very much for this information, my dear sister. Okay, so again, this is the Amazigh who were getting ready to be taken to the United States. they were Muslims and so forth. And you see, they were clearly black folk. No doubt about that. And this little boy, every time I see this picture here, he's a Fulani. There's no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind this little boy is Fulani in 1863 and so forth and so on. So this is very interesting. So again, we talk about the issue of can they deport black folk from the United States? And we'll get into that. We'll talk about that. Please give your questions because this is an issue that you cannot say it's not going to happen. As you heard me say, my marquee, if they can put a convicted felon and re-elect him and put him in as the president of the United States, what do you think they can do to the 14th Amendment, which deals with you and your citizenship? They can tweak that. Our dear sister here who talked about this, she said it cannot happen, but she left out the vital point about the ignorancies of and the rogueness of the American government and the American people, because the racism is so great. They prefer to put a felon inside the office again. Okay. And so if they can do this and tweak the law, you remember when Obama was on, the first time somebody said he was convicted, the first time I think he was trying to go for president, they said he was eliminated because he was convicted for possession of marijuana, which it comes out was not true. But look, they said that he was not eligible because they said he was convicted for a crime of possessing marijuana. Now, how they call this up on him, and yet the president now is convicted felon and is indicted in another case, and they re-elect him. This is what I'm saying. This is why it's important that you should look at this. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but as crazy as the politics are in the United States now, you have to know something's wrong when they put a felon. And when you had a black president, they were looking for everything they can to eliminate him by saying he was convicted of marijuana, or he had this happen or that. They was looking for ways to eliminate him out. But it seemed like they forgot that when they put one of their own back into the White House. Very, 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 very bad. Okay, a couple more here. How you doing, my dear brother? Well, Salam, thank you very much for showing up today. I thank you very much for that. Black people were already here and didn't come from Africa. They were this is a contention that, yes, my brother, I heard this and I heard some evidence that was given. And I was also told of a book that was written, or someone had a part of a journal of, I don't know if it was Pizarro, or if I can't recall if it was not Pizarro, Columbus or someone else talking about original black folk. Because I know that Columbus, when he I think it was his second trip or his first trip trying to find the quote unquote new world. Okay. He came across a boat that passed by him and he saw black people with turbans. And he said the women were wearing face masks, with niqab, as we know that today. He said that in his journal and they quickly forgot that. That means the black folk, before he even got over there, were already there. And we know that this journal, he described many of the Indians that he found in the Caribbean as black people. And we also know that the Caribbean Indians who were there talked about a black folk who they traded with, and they had gold, and they call them Guinang. That's where the word Guinea come from. This is what they called them. And they called the gold in them, they called Guinang. That's what they called them. See, so when this was tested, and then tested again in modern times, it found this gold was from West Africa. How can that be? If the West Africans only came there as slaves, but way before slavery, before they even put slaves over there, our brothers and sisters are already trading there. See, so this is a contention, and our sister says here in Texas, Indian grandfather nearly, yes, some say, yeah. There's no pure African black man in the United States. We know that now. There's none. Okay, we know we mix with all kind of things. All right, we know that, and there's no pure because of what has happened there. And most African American men still carry the R genotype, which comes from Europe because of the slave master and his sexual relations with our African sisters. We know that dreadful story. Our sister says many of our ancestors from Somalia have, yes, and very long hair. Yes. I talked about that in one of my other shows. talking about ancient Egypt, what we call Kemp. We were talking about the similarities, and they even showed this in the hieroglyphics of the people who we know, the Fulani people, which I believe they called, this is my contention, okay, from the evidence I gather, they call the Fulani people the Ka people. And I won't get deep into that. You see my thing talking about Egypt. I have about 5 or 6 courses on Egypt. They called the Fulani people Ga, but I know they had an original name before they became the Ga people. Not Ga, Ka people. They had another name. They called them, I can't remember the name, who, because they had mixed with the Europeans, they became the Fulani people. They became the Somali people. They became the people from, like Somaliland and the Eastern Horn region. So we have the similarities. And I told the story when I was in Sudan. The brother told me there was 2 girls who were in college. He asked me, because he knew them. He said, "Can you tell me which one was Fulani and the other one was Ethiopian?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, this girl here is Fulani and she's Ethiopian." See, so we know there's a great similarity because we came from the same stock. That's why the similarity is great. That will be coming in soon. I don't know, brother, please greet us when you come into the chat. How you doing, my dear brother? Shalom Aleichem. Thank you for showing up today. And let me present some questions here. Thank you, dear brother. Any greetings you want, English, Hebrew, Arabic, Fulani, or Hausa, whatever. As long as you greet everybody, I'm happy. Thanks all for showing up today. I'm going to pose some questions here, and we look at these things here, and we ponder this, and then you throw what you believe in the chat about this. There are U.S. politicals who are in private and open suggesting mass deportation of African Americans, and the racist non-Africans who side with their Toubab groups. Some Latinos suggest we leave the United States. This is a growing problem now. We have our brothers who are on the south of the border. Some of them are as dark as us. Some have African heritage. We know now that many, especially as further south as you go, the more African blood is in their veins. Okay, between 3 to 20, some even up to 30%, we know from the genotype. But many of them have inherited a hardcore racist attitude toward the black man in America. And they side many times with the Toubab. This is why you see many times in cases in the United States where you think it's Toubab cops who have actually shot and killed an unarmed black man or black woman. Many times these are very light-skinned Hispanic men who harbor racial animus towards their black brothers. We know that also is a fact. So we see this. We see this rising now. We see people come into the country of the United States, and then suddenly here, we've been here since 1611, 1619, all of a sudden they come up with attitudes like, hey, you should leave. See, and we've been there since 1611. And we built that country. I know one famous Puerto Rican actor said that they built the country. I won't get into that. We know how, yes, they have some portions. We cannot say they didn't, but they were not toiling in the fields like we did in 1619. They were not being whipped and hung and castrated like we were. See, so he was wrong in that regard. This is not the first time for such suggestions. We know that the government to be very creative, skirting constitutional law. Brothers and sisters, we know that for a fact. When it was time, when they wanted to take some Africans born in America back to the United States, they skirted the law, and they put Africans on ships and they sent them to West Africa. We know that for a fact. That's why I'm trying to say this thing about throwing us out. You can't laugh at it because they can tweak the Constitution any way they want. See, this is why I said you should think about this. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but since it's been brought up, that means someone's talking about it. And we know that we saw a Pew report in 2012, or it might have been later than that, where they interviewed whites, and of course there's a thing of error there, but they said many whites, I forgot, it was a hard number, like 65% believe slavery should be reinstituted. Yes, remember that Pew report where they did a survey of suspected Toubab Americans. 60% or more said slavery should be reinstituted. So what do you think? That elusive brotherhood is still elusive to you. And now this issue come up where someone brought up the possibility of how they can remove us. For this education, a well-spoken sister assisted to mention this fact and expose it on YouTube. There must be some validity to it. She speculated it's coming from Biden camp. Now, let me show you those who come late. Let me show you who I'm talking about. Our dear sister here, who I believe is Fulani. I also believed her to be Fulani. She talks about the issue of this, about the African Americans being thrown out. See, because it came to her attention, and she believed, she didn't mention no name. She's very, because you can get sued. You got to be very careful on this because it hasn't come out open yet. But she believed it come from the Biden camp and from immigrant lobby groups who want to see the African Americans thrown out. See, and this sister here, and I wrote her and told her that she was Fulani because she looked like a Fulani woman. I'll get to your questions here in a minute, brothers and sisters. I just want to make this point. So she talked about this issue here, and can Black Americans? You guys can see it on YouTube. Can Black Americans be deported from the United States? I mean, this is dirty, brothers and sisters. You think about this. African Americans been there since 1611. Now they're still talking about throwing us out. See, after we built the country, after we enriched it, we have added cultural things like she talked about. You think about that, okay? And there's some questions here. I'm going to give you some of the stupidity on why this is not really possible. Okay, let's get to some of our questions here. Okay, I think we're here at our dear sister Sandra, I believe, years of bad foods, real charts high, yeah, right. Therefore, yeah, our hair suffered, but you know what? That's true, my dear sister. But the heritage still is there. Okay, and the Fulani people who have had, they still maintain certain characteristics even after all these centuries. There's still the Fulani characteristics are still present, like our dear sister here. See, and I believe her to be Fulani. And as you heard me say, I wrote her and told her she looked Fulani. But this is yes, in one class I had, I talked about the food. You notice something when the African born in America, Afro Americans, whatever name you want to call the brothers there and sisters there, after they've been there since 1619, the food is still killing us there. When they come over to the continent and begin to bring in the African foods again, you look at the brothers who come from LA, whatever the situation may be, and they come into Ghana, they come into Nigeria, they come into the Gambia, and they stay for a while. Their complexions begin to what? Look good again, especially our sisters. They begin to lose weight, and their health begins to strengthen again. This is a very interesting fact. So our sister here said this, and this is a very interesting comment. And our brother actually since 1492. Yes, we said that we know that the Portuguese were making their rounds. The Portuguese hit the northwest coast of Africa, and they took the Amazigh people as slaves as far back as right after the conquest of Andalus, when the Spaniards took back their land. Then the Portuguese, and then they had the white man's burden. They start to go back to Morocco, to the coastline, and start to take Moroccans who were black folk, Amazigh, and bring them to Americas. So we know they came. But we also, this contention, as you said, that they've been there for centuries. And that's still a moment of contention. We know Columbus had made his comment. He said that when he was going to the Caribbean, he found a boat passed right by them. They were black folk with turbans, jet black in color turbans, and the sisters were wearing niqab, the face veils. See, so that's why there's a contention. And our brother said deliverance. I don't know what you mean by that. How you doing, my dear brother? Okay, yeah, from some. Okay, my dear brother, you from southern Morocco? Okay, please, my dear brother, Athena, felicitations. Please give us your felicitations. Give us your salam when you enter the chat. Thank you very much. I'm a black man from southern Morocco. You are welcome here, brother. Yeah, we're just poor, low. Yeah, okay, brother. I understand. I've been in Morocco almost 2 decades and so forth and so on. And, so I understand, we're going through hardship. That's everywhere, even the United States, everywhere in the world now under the system. The system is killing everybody. You can't even rent a house. You can't buy houses now because everything is out of whack. Food now, prices everywhere around the world is skyrocketing. We're under a divine curse, real big one. And is this a, I'm not going to have, no, this is, okay, I'm not going to even deal with this. Okay, and our brother, most Black Americans are not African Americans. Most are rich. This is a contention again, they say, but my dear sister, if you look at my class that I talked about Egypt, I gave you the genotype of West Africans. The West Africans, the African Americans descended because the African Americans, if you look at our grandmothers and so forth, our grandmothers have and some of our brothers, ancestral brothers, they carry the EM series and also the LO series, LO or LO1 do series like this, okay, in genotype. That's ancient Egypt. The West Africans are ancient Egyptians. And you see my classes, I gave you all the evidence, linguistics. I talk about eyewitness accounts. And we talk about and so forth, and cultural things and so forth and so on and whatnot. So this contention here, I heard this, but how do you get away from the genotype? The African Americans carry this EM series. See, so how do we get away from that? And the EM series is originating out of ancient Egypt we call Kemt. And then they left the Exodus and came into West Africa, and the West Africans are the ancient Egyptians. See, so we know that for a fact. Okay, we see here, Black Indigenous Americans cannot be deported from, yes, yes, but, again, someone brought this to our attention. Our dear sister did. So someone is talking about how they can throw us out. And you say us far-fetched, but look, they put a convicted felon and they twerk the law so he can come and be president again. The infrastructure is so racist that whatever they want to do, they do. They will bypass any law to get what they wanted. That's why it's far-fetched, yes, but I would be very, very careful because this talk may get louder and louder. Okay, walaikum salam, my dear sister. Thank you. Okay, yeah, Naima. Okay, yes, okay. Thank you very much, our dear sister, for giving us this information. Thank you very, very much. And my great-grandma told us who we, yes, Lot did and Lot didn't. I wish my mother would have told me more because I had suspicions, but I never could actually understand what her heritage was. It wasn't until she actually died that when they did a test on her, they asked, my sister, me and my dad about my mom's heritage. And they said, was your mom from the southern part of Europe or was she from North Africa? See, and me and my sister, my father, we said, what are you talking about? Now we understand because when my sister and I, we did our DNA, we found out we have this heritage here in Al-Maghrib or Morocco in English. See, so we know, this aspect. And I wish a lot of our ancestral mothers and fathers would have given us more information, but a lot of them didn't know because it was hidden from them. It was taken from them. Okay, for blacks, there are a lot of us who believe that this is calling out Babylon and prophesies it. Yes, I know we have some of our Christian brothers who believe, who are avid readers of the Bible, believe that there are some passages that talks about this issue and whatnot. And again, we have a lot of issues about black people and what they are and what they believe and what they should believe, because we have a contention now. We know that maybe up to 50 to 60% of our ancestors were, and you saw, if you saw my class, I gave the list of the Africans taken. Fulani people were Muslims. Majority of Mende and Mendinka people were Muslims. And they were other, I forgot the other on the list. They were all Muslims. The early part from the 16 to about the late 1700s, there was no such thing as African Christians at that time. They were Juju, Ifa, they were traditional African religions, right? So, and they came over as that. But in the late 1700s, in the 1800s, because of all of the Muslim empires in West Africa and wars, a lot of the Muslims were taken to the Americas. See, and so many of you African Americans, your ancestors were Muslims. Many don't want to hear that, but it's true. None came to the United States as Christians. None. We know our tribes and histories of Indians. You are not correct. I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe you're talking to someone else. I'm not sure what you're talking. Our tribes and I don't know what you're talking about American Indian. You talk tribal history. You're not correct. I don't know what you mean by that. Okay. I see. This is the same sister. Okay, yeah. Down here, what she said, the DNA. Sorry. No, my dear sister. This is not the case. DNA has solved many cases, especially cold cases of murder and other things. DNA has also helped people get inheritance. When they found that somebody didn't realize that this is their parents and they were given inheritance. DNA is the future, and so forth and so on. And so I strongly disagree with you in this regard. Something actually additional came. Yes, Mansa Musa. Hamites are terms that was designated by the Toubab historians. There's no such thing as that. They labeled that to divide the people. The Hamites were black-skinned, black Africans, but they called them Caucasians, which is absolutely okay. It's a fallacy. We're not Hamites or Semites or anything like this. And if you saw my class on Egypt, I cleared this issue up a lot. And here, why are the people so against Black Americans being Indigenous Americans? See, that's contention that they said they could be. Now, if they are indigenous to the Americas, where did they come from originally? Somebody give me an answer to that. What you think that answer is? If they came way before, which we know because Columbus said that when he came the first time, he saw a ship going back to Africa of Muslims, black-skinned with turbans, and girls with the niqab, we call it, or face veils. See, so if our Black brothers and sisters entered the Americas, when did they come and where did they come from? See, that's the contention that we have to ask. They still make us indigenous to Americas, and it was Massimo's cousin that went west. Yes, we know this tale that we know was written that and Askia Muhammad also, I can't remember which one, sent 2,000 ships. Only one came back. They said that a swell in the ocean swallowed all the boats and they returned back to West Africa. Then they returned again, and then they never came back to Africa. And we know the Indians said they had trading and wars with blacks from another land, and they had their gold, which they call Gwinnett. That's what they called the Africans at that time. That word became Guinea. We know in West Africa, right? Guinea. Okay, see, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea-Conakry. Okay, that name. So we know this. Okay, we got here then are accurate for people who are alive. And no, what about the ancient Egyptians, my dear sister? Huh? They took they took the royal mummies and they did DNA tests. We have our ancient, our brother, ancestral brother, Sheikh Diab, who was a geneticist. They did testing on the royal mummies of Egypt, and so this and they determined a melon test showing that they were black, and also we got a genotype from this, and the genotype matched that of the West Africans, which I talked about in my class, and plus the African Americans and the Caribbean Americans, because we're West Africans, so we're descended from ancient Egyptians. See, so again, I we have different intentions. You have something learned to do concerning. Yes, it's not easy for these type of classes to have that. But if I get a chance here, I've been showing this for the last couple of weeks. I'm gonna show you the genotype, talking about this again, proving that the West Africans, the African Americans, the Caribbeans are West Africans, no doubt. We didn't come from South Africa. We're not Zulus. Okay, we're not from the Zulus. We're not from any of the other ethnic groups from the South, right? We come from West Africa. See, West Africans have the EM series, right? The EM series was found with the royal mummies in ancient Egypt, plus linguistics. Again, many of you don't know, please revisit my tapes to talk about that. Okay, there's no such thing as Hamites. This is a creation. Yeah, there's yes, okay, yes, but you know, these terms like Hamitic people were used to divide Africans by saying to the Hamitic people they were black, but they're not black. They were African, but they're not really African. These kind of confusions. I talked about this issue, and so forth and so on. My mother, you know, the LO1 series is going from South Africa, from Egypt, ancient Egypt down to South Africa, then returning back up there. We know that for a fact. Also, because if you look at 23andMe, 23andMe shows a map. I have that map somewhere. I have that map showing those genotypes, but I'm not sure where they're at. Okay, Mansa Musa is. I never saw his test. I don't know where you got this. I don't know where you got this from. If he was this type or not, because that's very, very interesting that you're saying here. I would have to look in there because I presented it last week. I don't know where I got the genotype, and I never heard that he was tested. A couple more, and I have to get back to these questions. Columbus said he saw black people in Americas, which were indigenous. Yes, he did say that, and they have a journal talk about that. And he described even the Indians, many of the Indians being jet black in color, but their hair was straighter. But he found others who weren't. And matter of fact, when he came there, he found some who was speaking Arabic. And matter of fact, they also wrote in there that I can't remember what island it was. They took him to a cliff. On top of the cliff was a small masjid. And one of the Indians was speaking Arabic, because why? The West Africans, who were Muslims at the time, came to the Caribbean region, right? They spoke Arabic, and they must have converted some of the Indians to Islam. We know this is the case as well. So there's a lot of interesting information here. Our sister is part from a group that say the Indians became grandma. Yeah, yeah, okay. You know, as teacher, you know, there's no compulsion here, my dear brother. You know, that's fine. You know, we have some to believe certain things. There's nothing wrong with that. We have a right to agree to disagree, right? So there's no problem in that. We present our case. Even if we agree, we still respectfully respect the other people's position. Unless it's outrageous, then of course we call them out. The so-called black people claiming to be indigenous to Americans don't want to take DNA tests because they instantly kill their. Yes, because because the genotypes. This is, you know, and I tell you something. What person would not want to be ancient Egyptian? The greatest, most powerful, and most celebrated, most educated, and subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed was this region. He gave all the calendars, everything that we talk about today, all these advances that the world didn't, is still trying to figure out were given. Why would you want to be those people? Why you want to be away from them? See, and that's my contention. We still have many black and just yes in America. Yes, we all said this, and some black friends still practice. Yes, everybody. Yes, and there's contention about this with the United States government, where they were the Black American who said they were indigenous wanted reparations. I don't think American government gave it to them. If I remember right what I read, I heard they didn't give it to them, and even some of the Indian federations still denied the Africans who went and lived and married among them, even denied them their I forgot this not citizenship, but this membership. So there's a lot of things about that. So much thing that Egypt using that logic. We're not us as no brother. No. You got to go to back. You got to look at my course. I got a course there talking about Egypt is ours. You should review that. Okay, please review those tapes. I give you so much evidence, even eyewitness accounts coming from the Toubab. I'm talking about Europeans. That's what the Fulani word we call Europeans is Toubab. They gave all this evidence about what they saw there in ancient Kemet. I talk about the language that was developed. They called Neher, means the language of God. Okay, and we talk about the people and so forth and so on there. No, brother, you should go back and look at the tapes. Okay, I got to stop at this point here, and let me get back to these questions so we can ponder this. I'm making my points. It was a known fact that black folks didn't support VP Harris. Now, we know this is the case. I'm not living in the United States. I haven't been in 2 decades, but I know and read, and I've seen many talk shows. I know the brothers because I didn't feel good about her either, especially with the brothers had issues with her. Prominent brothers felt that if she became president, she would pressured her. This is bad English here, and reign and African American men, and she did not enjoy the support from. Yes, but I even felt this, that maybe there was contention that she would usher in programs to mass incarcerate black men, because I don't know if you felt the way I felt. She was anti-brother. Now, I know some things she had in the past with some revolutionaries, but something along the way happened to her. See, and so a lot of the black folk didn't want to vote for her. Our dear sister who talked about this, who exposed this, said she believed it came out from their camp. They were saying since the black folk didn't want to support them, they should leave, get out, and we should deport them. See, because the Democrats have always taken our vote for granted. So if they even talk about such an issue, where are they going to deport us to? Where in Africa? And who is going to accept us? Which countries in Africa would support mass deportation of African Americans? We have a model of African Americans in Liberia. Anybody know the story of Liberia? They're still at each other's throats. The Africans born in America were brought to Liberia, and they have not meshed very well with the Liberians who were already there. And the African Americans took power, and they've been in power for a long time. And they have a lot of contention between them. So what country will we be deported to? See, this is something that we must ask. Free black folk were taken back to West Africa, namely Liberia, and the disconnect between them and their brothers is still being played out. This is a fact as well, as you heard me say. See, the Liberian problem, I don't know if it's still as strong as it was, but it's still evident. If this talk becomes louder, if this talk, I don't know what happened to this thing. They changed a lot of things I wrote. This is bad English. if it becomes louder and more public, what should be the stance of African Americans? If there's talk and politicals come forward on CNN, say, and talk about we're looking into the possibility of removing African Americans, I don't think they would do that. But I don't know, perhaps they may do something else, but I'm just curious how they would even try to even entertain such a thought. Because what African country would accept a mass deportation of African Americans there? See, over here on this continent, he is still clinging for the hopes, and our brothers and sisters still cling for the inclusion to be American. This outweighs them more than being African. And it's still elusive. You still have no brotherhood with the general white population. Remember King Cam, who came on last week? He and I were talking about this issue, and he was talking about how they found other ways, instead of trying to deport us, they have found other ways to hurt us. But if we talk, becomes public, African Americans cannot wait for beloved white folk to bail them out. If you're going to sit here, if they start running this type of talk, black folks should be very, very, courageous, and I believe they would be to stop this nonsense. Okay, in court, I don't know, whatever the situation may be, but they need to stop this kind of banter. Okay, because it's not right. You were born there. Our ancestors was born there. We told that land, and now suddenly they want to throw us out. No, man, that's not going to cut it. That's not going to cut it. If this was became reality, would the brothers and their families take their wealth? Now we go into the issues, brothers and sisters. If they run this game, what African Americans going to be sent back to Africa? Are we allowed to take our wealth with us? What if we have 2 or 3 homes? Well, can we sell them and take that money to West Africa? Because that's where I think they would send us, back to West Africa mainly. I think this is one problem in probably Central America or in some other African states where the population is low. I believe this would be. And I'm going to tell you something, brother and sister. You think about something. If they begin to take African Americans in particular, the most influential black folk on this planet are African Americans. That's be honest. Okay? They have more money than anybody else, and they have more political clout than anybody else. I'm talking about other black folk. If they begin to take all this wealth, one of the greatest consumers inside the United States are black folk. If they take them, they said, I forgot what this crazy amount of money that we spend with the Jews and Christians and Japanese and everybody else. If they took all that buying power out, what do you think is going to happen to the economy? And we take that buying power and that money and bring it here to West Africa. That's going to explode. It's going to explode the continent. It's going to enrich it tremendously. See? And this is some of the issues. What would happen if they do this? Can we take our wealth? What if we have $100,000 in the bank? What's going to happen with that money? Are they going to let us take it over here? Do you know what $100,000 would do in Ghana or in Nigeria or in Cote d'Ivoire or Mali or Niger? Huh? Think about that. See, since the African Americans have mixed freely, namely with the Toubab, Mexican, and Caribbean Hispanics, women, how much African blood would be needed to determine their eligibility to be? That's the issue, brothers and sisters. They said we're going to take the African American out. Okay, we have African Americans who are very fair complected and they have white mothers or white fathers. How much percentage of African blood will be needed in order to be deported? This is an issue again. Because since we start to mix with white folk, we have those we call passing, who look like they're white folk, but they're actually black people. So are they going to be deported with us also to West Africa? See, these are the issues that I'm raising. A couple more and I'll start to answer questions again. Would black husbands and wives of non-African Americans be spared? Now, we got a black man married to a Toubab woman, Toubab in Fulani dialect, meaning white. He's married to a white woman. He's got 5 children. Okay? Now, what's going to happen if this thing comes about? What about his wife, his children? Is his children be taken and his white American wife be left there to destroy her? These are issues, brothers and sisters, that people are not talking, we're not thinking about, because they talking about throwing this out. But how about this man? How about our sisters who are married to Toubab men? Are they going to break up that family and say, hey look, lady, I'm sorry, you're descendants from West Africa, you got to leave. Look at your skin color, you got to leave. She's got a husband and she's got children. What's going to happen with them? These are issues, brothers and sisters, why this issue of talking about the possibility or even mentioning such a thing is just ridiculous. How would they handle these glaring problems? This is issues, brothers and sisters, that we talk about here and whatnot. Let me find this genotype, okay, if I can. If I can find the, where would that be? And no, I'm not sure where it would be. I'm not sure, brother and sister, where this old kingdom. Let me see if I can find. I'm looking for the genotype so I can show this, because I keep hearing we got brothers and sisters here. No, I don't see it here. I'm trying to find it. Please bear with me for a minute. I'm trying to find mysteries. Okay, yeah, here we go. Now, brothers and sisters who keep talking about the West Africans, the African Americans have nothing to do with Africa, or they're not ancient Egyptians, or so forth and so on. This is a genotype taken from royal mummies. These genotypes are found in West Africans. You came from West Africa. If you look on like my grandmother's side, who my grandmother is Igbo and Yoruba. The Igbo and Yoruba people we know came out of ancient Egypt, because she probably sported these genotype. See? And this is why I want you guys to look at this before you start to comment again and explain how this to be. Some of you who are in this chat now are Mende. Some of you are Mendika. Many of you may be Fulani. Many of you may even be Bambar, or you Sere, or any of the other people, or even Dogon, or whatever, Tuareg. You have these genotypes. This is ancient Egyptian. So how are you going to explain this off? See? So this is what I'm trying to put out to you to get you to think, because the genotype is very important, but there's linguistics also involved in this, which I covered it in my other course. So I want you guys to see this so you can have a good understanding on why I've labeled this and say the West Africans, the African Americans are West Africans, and the West Africans descended from ancient Egypt, because we have the royal mummy genotypes, the royal mummies who run, the controlled, and the people who are the original people of ancient Kemet. This is their genotype. Okay, so we got that out, and now let's look at some of our comments here. Let's see if here black men are mixed with African. Okay, the Africans did not come here and mix with black. You know what, my dear, I'm hoping, my dear sister, that you looked at that genotype that I just presented. Okay, and go look at that again. America would lose too much money deporting. Yes, they would lose too much money. It would destroy the economy, because the buying power, the African Americans, it may look on the surface, yes, we're still behind the 8 ball. But if you start to take those dollars away who support these businesses, it's going to hurt the economy tremendously. And here's another thing we're not talking about. How about sports? Sports generate billions. Now you take African American football, basketball, in particular, track and field, in particular, and start to put them in Africa. We will control the sporting world from Africa, and we will garner all this money. The Americans will lose out. When the Olympics come, when we have the white and black, the white Olympics are the swimming and skiing and all this kind of thing. We call that the white Olympics. The black Olympics are the sprints, and you know what I mean, the track and field. They would lose that influence as well, because all now the African Americans would be running for Ghana, be running for Nigeria, or they'd be running for Morocco or something like this, and we would dominate the track and field aspects of the Olympics, and we would dominate all of the track and field events during the year. Africa would be predominant in it because the African Americans were thrown over here on the continent. It's very, very funny. Yes, the black. Yes, my dear. Yes, my brother. Thank you for this this situation here, and this is very interesting phenomenon that our sister brought up, and we know that some people believe that the Native Americans were actually they're black folks. I believe we had Native black people here. I believe that, but to the extent I do not know, and what is their genotype, and have we found them? Where are these Native black folk at? Are they in Oklahoma? Are they in Texas? Are they in Arizona or New Mexico? Where was the central area where these black Indians were before slavery came about? This is an issue that I want to find out. Okay, wait a minute. Our brother here said they care about mixture during slavery. One drop. Yes, I think they probably would use that rule. You're right, my dear brother. I think they probably would use this rule of this here by 1%, one drop, and you're black. I believe this probably would be the issue. And most blacks that claimed 5 tribes had answers that were enslaved. Yes, we know that, but we had you heard I had a class on this. There was a big war that happened for about 20 years or more, 25 years I think it was. They called the Black and Indian War. Not the Black and Indians fighting. The blacks and Indians, free blacks, escaped from slave plantations, joined with the Indians, and they fought Andrew Jackson and I forgot the others. They fought almost 25 years before they were defeated. See, but we had also, like in Oklahoma and some parts, I can't remember now, where we had Indians who actually enslaved black folk. They were there at the auctions and so forth and took slaves. We have that aspect also, but we also have, like in Florida, where the Seminoles. Why did the Seminoles take on African features? Because African slaves and freedmen began to join with the Seminoles, and they fought. Okay, we know that for a fact also, didn't we? We know that they fought together against the I think it was the Spanish at the time who were trying to colonize southern Florida, and they fought them. So it goes back and forth. We had black folk also had slaves in America. That was quiet kept, but now we have documentation showing we had some very rich black folk who had black African, slaves. Okay, we know that aspect as well. Living on our travel lands, right? Okay. Yes, I want somebody to give me an answer to this. Where is the predominant area of where these black Indian tribes are? I mean, I'm talking before slavery began, because I never found or heard where these areas were. Okay, we acknowledge that Africans came over and mixed in with black. Nobody is denying our African blood. We also have. Okay, thank you very much for your comment there, my dear sister. Okay, we see that you acknowledge that. The only running you would be doing is for your life. Yeah, I think you're commenting on another thing here. You're my people only. Watch, live, try, hit the like. Yep. Thank you very much, my dear sister. Thank you very much for that. And I have to be reminded many times. For those who like these kind of talks, I have a variety of talks. Please subscribe to my station. I have over 1,000 subscribers now. Alhamdulillah for that. And I talk about many different subjects: Islamic and West African history, North African history. I talk about those issues, and I don't mix. No, you see that I talk straight out. I'm not looking over my shoulder, and I can't say this or that. I'm going to talk. If there's something, I'm going to talk about it. And this is my station. I'm your elder. I'm going to give you what I know, and I'll give you to the best of my ability to explain those issues, especially the Sahel and so forth and so on. I talk about many of these issues like that, especially the history, because our history has been whitewashed. And so I'm here in Africa. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to venerate our African ancestors because I believe in that. And I believe we should do that. This is why you see me this way. I left America, and my wife could tell you, when I left from the United States, I canned the American clothing. I said, it's finished. My ancestors look like this, look like me. I'm going to be like them. And I've taken that and adopted that. I have not strayed from that. To agree, Africans conduct this sporting business together. Yes. I'm just curious if they start to throw us out. Africa would be the most dominant sporting area in the world because the best athletes in the United States are African Americans. Who can deny that? Okay. The American football, we start running American football here in Africa. We have beautiful climate here. We have beautiful stadiums here. Can you imagine the money now? Because the best, talking about football, and basketball, that means the people with money now would have to travel to come here to watch us here on the continent. And they will do it because we know the Toubab Americans, Europeans love entertainment. Since slavery, they love to see Black folk entertained. They pay top dollar to go witness this type of activity, especially to see Black folk, big, tall, run fast, jump high, and so forth and so on. I believe they will come to the continent to support those type of activities. This continent would be already rich because of the resources, and the sporting world, we would dominate that if they sent all the African Americans over here. Okay, yeah, we still talking about the thing about I still want somebody in the chat to give me where is the predominant Black American Indian tribes who came to the Americas beforehand? Where were they centralized? Why have we have not found the area where they were centralized? Where was it? Oklahoma? Was it Florida? Was it Alabama, Mississippi? Where all of these Black indigenous tribes came from? They came from Africa. Because where did they centralize? Why are we not finding their grave sites? Why haven't we taken their DNA? This is what I'm curious about. So, okay, this is documented. Okay, thank you, my dear sister, for telling us that. My dear sister, please, next time, please greet your brothers and sisters here. I don't care when you say hi or shalom or salam or whatever, but please greet everyone because we're African people. This is what we do. We always have respect for one another. But thank you for showing up, my dear sister. Thank you for this information. And in the South and Southwest, mostly. Okay. And I'm curious about, was DNA ever taken from these burial sites? I'm curious about that. East Coast, Texas. Okay, yes, our dear sister said that now, our brother Ernest, he said that too as well. They're centralized there. I'm curious about their genotype. That's what I'm curious about. What is their genotype? I'm curious about that. Are you kidding? Black people know that they claim Indian. It's always Cherokee. Yeah, there's, I said last week, and please don't misunderstand me. The Black people in America, we have a tendency a lot of times to proclaim others than our African heritage. We have Black folks saying, I'm more French, I'm more Irish, I'm more British, I'm more German, I'm more Russian, or I'm Indian, or I'm Japanese, or I'm Filipino. And they look like me. I go to tell some Irishman that I'm an Irishman, I look like this, they're going to laugh. They're going to laugh at me. See? Okay. Yep. All right. There are 1,000 Black indigenous tribes in America. Yeah. So I hope somebody send me that information because I'm curious. I want to know their genotype. When they took DNA, where was their original origin from? This is what I'm curious about. White supremacy, they don't and won't invest in your achievements. No, they will not. We know that. Why to import so many Blacks from Africa if there are so many Black tribes people? No, well, they're not importing. Since Trump took over, the immigration of Africans have dwindled tremendously, and Biden also kept this trend. The Africans given visas, student visas, and everything else has diminished tremendously. Now with Trump back in, that's going to probably be cut down to way down to very, very little. This is why we have to develop the continent. And those Africans who are living inside the United States want to come here to Africa. You hone your skills and bring those skills here. We need them here. See, we need them here. And we have more Afro Americans coming to the continent and stuff like that. But we have problems on the continent. I'm not saying this is everything is working good, but we do have problems on the continent, especially with citizenship and so forth and so on. But that's going to be rectified, I believe, in the future. 2% is needed. 2% is needed. I don't know what our dear sister is meant by that. I was speaking about slavery here. Oh yeah, talking about the black blood. I forgot the ratio they use. It's a crazy law that they institute about us. If you got a 1 drop of blood, even though you have blonde hair and blue eyes, then they say you're if your daddy was this or your mommy was that, and it's a drop of blood of African blood, you African. The 1 drop blood, 1 drop rule or something. I forgot what they call that now, which is really something. And they develop all these names, mulatto, octoroom, and quadroom. All these names they gave to black folk who were mixed with Indian. They call the Indians. I remember one time in southern Texas, they call them Zombo. Zombo is half Native American and half African. They call Zombo. See, so we had all these names of black people who they mixed: quadroom, octoroom, mulatto. I mean, it's a shame. I mean, all of these different names. What tribe spiritualist is called? Okay, I don't know anything about the American Indian belief system as a Muslim. I cannot believe in that. I don't know what their belief systems. I know that all people believe in supreme God, but they also believe in sub-gods and so forth and so on. And the American Indians, I believe, the Amerindians also had this type of system that they believed. Actually imported about 4% to the United States because there were many here. Yes, my dear sister, actually only, 4% to the United States. It's dwindling tremendously, our dear sister. The visa process is now, I remember I saw something, was it Forbes, saying that how many percentage now, 90% of applicants were denied African visas to come in. 9%. I thought it was in Forbes. It's some astronomical. I mean, that's a wake-up call for all of us to say, hey, now it's time to develop. It's time to stop running to Europe, and it's time to develop here. I know what's going on here in Africa. I live here, but running off to Europe, running off into the Americas, that's not the answer, because you see what's happened now. You got Trump in there, and Trump wants to have mass deportation. And now we have a side talk of some politicals talking about throwing African Americans out. So we got to be very careful now. Very, very careful. Okay, we got here. Judge has this white wife. The judge and her white husband, Eddie Murphy, is. Yes. Thank you, my dear sister. Talking about this again. What about the brothers who are married to Japanese Americans, or brothers married to Mexican American, or married to a Toubab, Toubab means white girl? What's going to happen if they come with this crap about throwing us out? Or if they're going to destroy all the families? And what about the children of these marriages? And we have a great amount of entertainers, especially the brothers married to what? Toubab women. We have many athletes, famous on top of that, married to non-African women. And I'm going to tell you something, my personal opinion. If they did do this, do you know the upliftment of Africa is going to happen? It's going to be a turbulent time when African Americans come here, yes, because they're going to have to be reconditioned because it's a different climate and different food. But it'd be an easy to readapt to the climate here and the food and everything. And you'll see, because you heard me say, I know African Americans who were in Alabama, Mississippi, or Georgia, or in Texas or California. They had weight, they were heavy. Some had health issues. Suddenly they come to Ghana, or they go to Nigeria, or they go to the Gambia, or they go to Senegal. Their health begins to restore. And you look at their complexion about a year later, it's totally different than when they first came. They lost weight and everything. This is something you talk to those who know what I'm talking, who live on the continent. You see your brother, sister, when they come over here, look at them when they first arrive, and then come to review them 1 year later. Especially our sisters. I saw African American sisters when they came, they had a lot of things in their face, their body, they had a lot of body fat. They didn't look as good. 1 year later, you see them in African attire. They're eating dashin, they're eating a lot of different, African foods now. They look good. They look good. Their complexion is cleared up. I know one sister is like that. I remember her when she came. I know her because what happened in the United States. I know of her. And she came here. She had a lot of things because of hormones and everything like that, stress of living in America. And then after 1 year, her complexion cleared. And she looked very good. And she was about 50 years old. So that's something. But she's talking about slave. Okay, importation of colonial. Yes. 4%. I don't know what you guys mean by 4%, because I gave you. I don't know if you're talking about the slave institutions that took Africans into the Americas. I don't know if you're talking about that. I gave you a list of the major tribes that were taken, and Fulani was one of them. You have a large Fulani population inside the United States. That's right. Yes, Shokran. Yeah, thank you very much for saying that, my dear sister. Thank you for giving that to Tech Phoenix. Thank you very much for that. And Larry, there were slave breeding farm. Yes, they did. They had that, and so forth and so on. Now we have surface reports now in journals that were found showing that the white mistress of the plantation was also taking in Black African slaves when she found her husband was, leave her bed at nighttime to go to the slave quarters to have sexual relations with slave women when he had his wife there. So we also know we have journals now where we had white women were doing the same thing. When her husband left the bed, she called in a house servant and so forth and so on and had sexual relations with that. And we've had graphic talks of journals, very graphic, of what women, they found these things now, long time after. Some of these white women wrote graphic details, okay, of their sexual encounters, talking about the size, the penis of the slave man and all. Some of it's very, very sexually charged, very, very sexually charged. So we have that. Also, we know that some of the slave, very rich white women who weren't married had slaves, and they went to slave auctions, and they will pull, we have these reports, they will actually pull the loincloth off the African slaves who were brought to see how endowed they were. The more endowed they were, that's who they paid for, because they were having sex with them. It is crazy, the stuff that now we find in journals. It is crazy what they were doing to us. Not only were our sisters abused, our brothers were forced to have sexual relations with slave-owning women. We have all of this. It is crazy, very, very crazy. Yes, our health is important. It is very important, and I'll say that you will gain when you come to Africa, and when you start to leave all that bad food there in the United States, and you start to come here to Africa. The food it tends to be much better. You start taking in the sunlight again, and you'll see your whole outlook will change tremendously. The Indians today are mixed with white. Yes, we know. This is true. Our dear sister, we know that they were mixed mostly with white. We understand that, and we know that for a fact, is we know that the European slave owners mixed with just about all melanated women. They had an insatiable taste for black and brown skin. We saw that because we have the journals where you have a so-called quote unquote white mistress of a plantation. He's in bed with her, but he preferred to leave her to go make his rounds in the slave chambers with black women. Why was that? Huh? We know that. This is not a sex class. We can't talk what we want to say, but you understand what I mean. In the early writings, Indians were called. Yes, they were, and even Columbus said the same thing. Columbus said, matter of fact, he even used the term black and reddish brown, talk about what he saw in the Caribbean. Very interesting. Our brother here, yes, how you doing, my dear brother? How are you? Thank you, your brother. Okay, thank you very much for talking about my beard. And movies were made about Mandingo and Goodbye Uncle Tom. Yeah, about sex. Yes, you know when that Mandingo. Let me tell you something. That was in my generation. We were young men. I remember something when I was in the States. When this Mandingo movie came out, do you guys, I don't think they still have that. We had what they call the drive-in. Remember, you would drive your car into a movie theater, but it was outside and they had the old box. You put the box, you drive into the parking areas. They had a lane where a car can go, and then they had the old-fashioned speaker here, right? And you could watch the movie from your car. We call them drive-ins in those days. That was in my time. I don't know if they still have that or not. When this movie came out, Mandingo, in the 70s, I remember there was a lot of racial tension at the time between black folk and white folk. It's always been, but sometimes it's more heightened than others. Black people start having an identity. We start wearing afros. We had our own shake. We had our own talk, lingo, and everything else, right? When this movie Mandingo came, when Ken Norton, who's now dead, the former heavyweight champion of the world, was playing the Mandingo, okay? He's playing it. And when he was killed, I remember the brothers. I remember this very clearly. And I think at that time, I might have been 19. I can't remember now. Maybe 18, 19 years old when this movie came out. And when they killed Kenny Norton, right? The slave owner, because why? The slave owner's mistress, she was mad at her husband because her husband cherished black slaves to have sex with. So she brought in the biggest, baddest African slave on the plantation, which was Ken Norton. He was Mandingo because the Mandingo were big people, right? So she brought the one Mandingo who was Ken Norton, and he had relations with her. And until she got pregnant and had a baby. He found out that Ken Norton fathered the baby of his wife. So he killed her and the baby, and then he brutally killed Ken Norton. The brothers jumped out of the cars. I'll never forget this. This is in Gardena, California. And I mean, everybody was mad because it was heightened tensions at the time. When the slave owner, the white man, the Toubab, used a pitchfork to kill Ken Norton. Everybody's seen this movie, Mandingo, right? Everybody's seen it. The brothers jumped out of the car and they started looking for Toubab. Anybody Toubab, they start fighting them. I'll never forget that. And it was a big ruckus all over the place. And this one drive in Gardena, California, I never, ever will forget that. Brothers were hot. They weren't having it. When he was killed, because Ken Norton was a famous, boxer at the time too. And man, they were fighting all over the place. So these type of things drum up a lot of activity among African Americans. I'll tell you the story, and pretty soon I got to close here. Do you guys read about this thing about 7-8 years ago? And these kids say they didn't mean it. I think they came from one Scandinavian country, or they came from Britain. They came to a slave castle, and I think it was in Ghana, if I'm not mistaken, or Sierra Leone. I can't remember. And they came there as an educational tool. African Americans and Caribbean Jamaicans Jamaicans, they were Trinidadians, and I forgot now, and African Americans. The African Americans came, many of them were in tears because the slave judge, that's our ancestors went, and you have to, I know, I was there in Ghana. It brings you to tears. These teenage and young adult Toubab from Europe were laughing and giggling, but they weren't laughing about the slave. They were just joking because they're young people. The brothers weren't having it. They thought that these white Toubab youngsters, because they're young too, were laughing about their ancestors being enslaved, and they beat them. I don't know if you guys remember reading about that. CNN showed that. I think this was 5, 10 years ago when that happened, and now they have a separation. When they bring Europeans or Americans, I think they separate them now. They let the whites, the Toubab go first or whatever situation, let them, and then they take the black folk. Because it's a very, very, very intense, brings a lot of sorrow to your heart, because you can even feel the ancestors there, what happened to them. And then you look over here and you see a Toubab, he's laughing, even though you don't think, but you may think he's laughing because of what happened. And this is what happened. And these young brothers weren't having it. And they dealt a big blow to these young Europeans who were there. And they said they weren't laughing about it. They were laughing, joking among themselves. But this is a place where there's no laughing and joking. This is a place of sorrow. Okay. But we have to be even here, brothers and sisters. Did you guys see what happened 3 years ago when there was 5 African American women in Ghana? They went on the slave castle on the top of it and gave a booty dance. Do you guys remember that? Do you know how much trouble that caused here in Ghana? It caused a big rift because these 5 sluttish sisters decided to get on top of a slave castle and do a booty dance. Do you guys remember that? It was in YouTube, Facebook, all over. They showed their rear ends and doing a dance on the slave at the top of the slave castle. It was in Ghana, if I'm not mistaken. So we have to be fair. And it caused a lot of contention among the Ghanaians. They were very upset, and also African Americans who were very upset with them. So we have to see that. And anytime we have something like this, it's very serious. I don't know how anybody can laugh. I'm gonna tell you now, because they bring you to tears when you go there. There was no laughter in my heart. There's no way in heck I can laugh at something like this, especially when you go to the halls. You can almost like you can hear the howling and stuff, that you can still hear that. How in the heck can you laugh at this time? How? There's no way. I remember, I'll never forget Jesse Jackson. Everybody knows Jesse Jackson, okay? When he went there, he could not stop crying. They took him over here. He just could not. He was just so out of it. He's so remorseful, so the sorrow in his heart was so great. So how the heck can somebody come to the slave castles there in West Africa and start laughing? Or, to be honest, how can our sisters from the United States or any other place come to the slave castles and have a booty dance and film it on the slave castles? I said at the time when I saw it, I was angry. I'm a Muslim. I had to be in control all the time. But this I couldn't take. I said they should have been arrested and deported, because that's an insult and an affront to the African slaves who were taken. To show their butt like this is not right. They did that. So we have to be honest. We had young white folks, Toubab, who laughed at the slave dungeons. We had African American women who were 5 or 6 of them, did a booty dance and filmed it and put it and went viral all over the world. So we have to be honest and fair here. I see here we got some more questions here. Okay, what part of Africa? I'm in Morocco. I'm in Morocco, my dear brother. I'm in Morocco. What do you eat there in Africa? Well, it all depends. Each region, they have their food. Like here in Morocco, we have a lot of, it's a citrus area, because North Africa, you'd be surprised how cold it gets here. I live in Fez. You'd be surprised how cold it gets here. Okay, I'm gonna tell you right now. You see, I'm dressed. It's cold out here, in the winter, because we're right close to the desert, right? So there's nothing holding the heat to the surface to warm you. The heat just goes away. So it gets relatively cold here. But we have apples, oranges, we have cherries here. We have all the major foods that you can think of, even some tropical fruits that grow to the south. But we have a lot of different other things. We have a lot of healthy foods here. And we also cook these foods in healthy things we call tagine and stuff like that. We cook that. But some are getting away from that. But if you come to Morocco or you go to Ghana or the Gambia, your health will improve greatly because you start to eat these foods. Okay, especially when you go to West Africa, when you eating dasheen, you eating fufu, you eating good banana, and you eating pineapple, guava, you eating mangoes and stuff like that. and then you having good meat to eat and a lot of vegetables and stuff, you'll see most African Americans, when they come, they begin to lose weight and their complexion clears up. I've seen this many times. I've heard the same thing was said. Can we claim Muslim as a nationality like the Jews? We already know it's a written rule. You're a Muslim, regardless if you're Russian or Fulani. Muslim takes precedence first. We know that, right? So you're a Muslim first. It goes over any tribal or racial hierarchy, because the Prophet ﷺ said what? Muslim, aku Muslim in the Arabic language, meaning brothers. A Muslim is a brother to another Muslim. So being Muslim is first, as the Islamic rule. Florence, okay. Oh, okay. There must be another century. I don't know what you talked there, my dear brother. And remember that. Yes, okay. You remember? Yes. That, I mean, we can laugh now, but I'm gonna tell you right now, the Ghanaians were not laughing at this situation. They weren't laughing when the Europeans, youngsters came here and they were fought. And then they weren't laughing when our dear sisters from the United States came and did that dance. They weren't laughing. It was nasty. They said it was, for the answers, joking, being stupid. Yes, but my dear brother, you and me both know. You think if you come to West Africa, okay, to Ghana, okay, I was there. I went there. I don't know how you can play around when you hit the slave dungeons. I'm sorry, man. It just has a profound effect upon you, because you can feel like your ancestors are talking to you and telling you, thank you for coming here now. I don't know. I'm a Muslim. I'm not talking about worship. I'm just talking about fact. When you're there, there's something that's so profound because of what happened. How in the heck can you laugh and joke? You cannot. Most of us are brought to tears. I mean, tears. When I'm going through, I cried the whole way. Not except, but I cried a lot, and I'm a man, I was holding it in, but I had a thing here, and the guy was helping me, and it was him and his wife, and they still cried. They said every time they come, they still cry. They're Africans, they were Ghanaians, and I was constantly. It was such a sorrowful situation. See. No, yes, no reference. Yes. Our sister said, my mother told me she was born in Texas. She said she was from the Blackfeet. Okay, yes. She was okay, but what is her African nationality? My dear sister, what African nationality is she? Because again, you had to come from the continent, because man was created in Africa. Then they left. Black folk did come to the Americas, but we know that they had to be what? Were they ancient Egyptians? We know also, we have reports that ancient Egyptians used a papyrus boat that was proven to go across the Atlantic. This was also written. And we don't believe they returned back to Egypt, ancient Egypt. Okay, we don't believe that. We believe they went to the Americas, because they said they used a papyrus boat to go to the West Indies or to the Americas. I've been close to the Fez. I was at. Oh yes, beautiful. That's where the dates are in the south, and stuff like that. Morocco, as you know, is a beautiful, beautiful country. Beautiful country. Shout out to my yes, brother. Is Maliki is a jurisdiction is here. You're right on that, and it's a staunch. We adhere to the Maliki jurisprudence here in Maghreb, especially mostly North Africa. Yes, you're right, and it's true. Thank you for that shout out, brother. Okay, well, we hear. My told me that she was Blackfeet. Yeah, okay. But we have that. I'm curious, since we have this, can people tell me how about the African ancestry? Because why I ask these questions is because why is our African ancestry always taking a back seat? Why are we're ashamed to be Fulani? Why are we ashamed to be Hausa? Why are we ashamed to be Igbo or Kapele or Mendinka or Mende or a Wolof or Jolof. See, I was talking about this for the last couple of weeks. If you know our history, you proclaim that and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that. I have European ancestry because it is the slave master, but I don't cherish that. I cherish the African ancestry because, again, I have to be reasonable. I walk into England and start talking to the Toubab over there and tell them I'm an Englishman. They'll laugh. I go to Ireland or Scotland and say, hey, I got heritage here. I'm Scottish. They're going to laugh at me. Huh? So I'm, that's just the way it is. What in the F is he wearing? You know what, my dear brother, this type of language here, I don't know what you're talking about. Are you talking about me or somebody else? Because I'm the only one there. What I'm wearing, I would tell you, if you were a Muslim, you wouldn't even ask that question. If you were here on Africa continent, you wouldn't ask that question. But just to give you, this is a turban, and this here is part of the turban. And when it's cold, you wrap it around you to keep you warm. Okay, see, it's a lot of material. I don't know how long material. I would have to ask my wife, but the material is long, and you have to learn how to shape your ima, and you wear it here because this is a tradition, right? And it keeps you warm in the winter months because we have wind here and we have cold and so forth and so on. So when you come out, and plus I'm older, I'm 70 years old now. So when I go out, it's very chilly. And so this keeps us warm. And this is what this is. One of our cultural traits here in Morocco is to wear this, and you wear here to cover your ears so to protect you from the elements. And then this is all the extra, which is also tradition. We put it around, and you have it, and you drape it around your keep your neck from the being hit by, and also keep you warm. So that's why, and it's okay. Again, this is not American because we're here in Africa. All right, we're here in Africa now, especially if you go to West Africa, you look at all the old pictures, you see the brothers, they're like this. And we even have a name for it. Okay, the turban has manners. Yes, it's not Islamic class, but let me say this. Our Prophet ﷺ had great regard because they wore the turban, what we call ima in Arabic language. When you make ablution, you don't have to remove this. This is what he said in reference to it, because this is a cultural thing, and it's a approved thing by our Prophet ﷺ. If I have to make wudu, I'm in this, I don't have to remove it. You just wipe over it in ablution before you make prayer. That's how he considered the turban or ima. This man told me that long face. I don't know what you're talking about now, my dear sister. I don't know. When I took it, showed that I have very little black feet in DNA and had a lot more. Yes, of course. I don't know what you look like, but if you're very dark, you are. Yes, okay, and I'm 55, and oh yes, yeah, drive-in theaters. Yes, yes. Yes, brother. That, you know what? When I was in my day, okay, that was a big thing. Friday came, we finished schooling, and what we would do, we would go and buy hot dogs, or we go buy pizza and stuff, right? And the brothers would get in, especially one car, and like four of us or something, we buy our pizza, and then we go to drive-in, pay our money, and go to the thing and watch a movie. And then during the early 70s, the black film start to come out. Superfly, you have Mandingo, you have all these black movies come out, right? So that was a big thing. We would go to the drive-in theaters to watch all these black movies in my time, in my day, and back in the day when I was a young man. And it was Friday, Saturday nights in particular. Sunday, no, we had to stay, do homework or whatever. But Friday night, Saturday night, we would go to these drive-ins and so have our pizza or hot dogs or hamburgers, and that was a big thing in those days. Okay, what? Okay, I don't know what you mean by that. DNA does not show bloodline, but similarity. It shows you. Yes, it shows, but it does give you indication because they have a guide to go by. When you take a DNA sample, say a Fulani person who died, say in 1755, and they found his place, they have ways now to extract that. They have now a genotype number, right? So all of a sudden they test me. they find my genotype number matches that of a person who died in Guinea-Bissau and so forth and so on, right? And they were Fulani. That's how we start to marry up what we are. We found another person who we now know, because the number signed, the genotype, we know he's Mende. Again, E series. Suddenly I take a test and they find it, I'm Mende as well, because I have the same genotype. It's a very, very interesting science. I think we'll call you Sheikh, man or king with knowledge in Africa. Yes, Baba also is the term used, and according to the languages that we use, but Baba is universal, especially the sub-Saharan Africa. Baba is a respectful term for older man and whatnot. And Islam, we have a part in the Quran talking about the Sheikh Islam, meaning the person is an older, respected man. See, so yes, this, and here we have respect for our elders, and it's not like it is in the United States. They lost that, but in my generation, we still had it. We start to lose it, but it's gone now. Okay, we know that because we have young punks will come and get ready to get on a bus, and they'll go after some young old black man, and they will disrespect him and even beat him. This type of stuff is going on a lot now. We didn't have that in my day. See, we didn't have that kind of nonsense. We have respect for our elders, but that is kind of what, because the moral decay of the United States is off the charts. Okay, we got a couple more, and brothers and sisters, I got to go pretty soon because I got a prayer I have to attend to. Yes, yes, a movie, a Mandingo. Yes, that Mandingo movie was boy. It was a sore spot when that movie came out. It seemed like all of the frustrations for 200 or more years came out of black folk. There were, in my time, there were black folk fighting everywhere. Where this movie were, if it was in the drive-in theaters or if it was in the movie theater inside, black folk were fighting the Toubab over this movie. It just spilled out. Especially they watch when they see Toubab laughing and giggling after Ken Norton was killed. Okay, not killed. I mean, he was butchered. Okay, by the slave owner. What he did to him, threw him in hot water and then used a pitchfork to kill him. The brothers went berserk. I still remember that. That was over 50 years ago. I'll never forget that. I saw brothers leaving out, jumping out of their cars, looking for Toubab to fight. I remember that. And then they start to fight it because they start to walk out to go to the bathroom, and they start fighting anyone who they saw was a Toubab. I'll never forget that as long as I live, because of that movie. It was that charged up. I'll never forget that. Okay, people were in America before Columbus, but then people came from Africa as well. Yes, we know people came from Africa because my ancestors, we know this is we know West Africa was depopulated. So how did they become depopulated? So where did all these people go? They were taken. They said 12 million or more were taken from West Africa alone. So where did they go? So you have to think about that. Okay, my father had hit it in the back. He would pay extra money to drive. Yes, we had some things too. We had brothers who didn't want to pay. See, so brothers, they said, okay, because I think they charged you by how many people was in the car. I can't remember so long, many years ago. So some of the brothers would go in the back, hop over the fence, and come into the car so we wouldn't have to pay. I remember that too as well. Boy, there was a bad time at that time. Okay, yes, Melungeon ancestry. I did a thing on Andalus. I talked about Melungeons, how they were created, because Aloof, they have. Now you better go back, my dear brother, and learn more about the Melungeon. The Melungeon person, when they originated, you had to have an African father and a white mother. You have to go back to my class talking about Andalus. I gave this evidence. I show you pictures also of this, how the Melungeon population first began. It didn't first begin with the Turks, because the Turks were not in they were not in Andalus. Black people were, as Muslim Mujahideen soldiers. And when they begin to take the towns, they begin to take the Spanish girls today, they begin to take those girls as concubines. We call them handmaidens, and some as wives. This is why we know reports of many brothers having up to where 50 of these Spanish women, and all of these 50 Spanish women have babies. They created a new race of people. They called them Melungeons because they had a black daddy and they had a white mother. In the Americas, we call that mulatto. We call it octoroon and octoroon. I forgot. No, okay, it's mulatto, octoroon, and quadroon. Those the three names. Here we call them Melungeons. Melungeons are still here in modern day Moroccans, especially to the central, to the north. You see they're lighter complected. Some have curly hair, some have kinky hair. But all of us here in Al Maghrib, regardless of how white you are, they have African ancestry as well. They cannot escape that, and all of them know that. They have African heritage. But DNA, yes, I did jet match. I first did the African ancestry last week. If you guys looked at my program, I gave you my certificate from the African ancestry, which is very expensive. The African governments acknowledge that because they think that test is more authentic. And I gave you my heritage Fulani, and then I have Mende, and I have Mendinka, and I also have Capelli. But Jet Match went even further and gave me more evidence of that. But I run myself, I consider myself as Fulani and as a Fulani American because I was born in the United States, but I'm Fulani because that's most of my heritage is Fulani, and that's what I run with. And I'm not going to back down from anybody on that. Somebody tell me, no, you stick with African American. I'm going to tell you and say, no, I'm not going to stick with African Americans because it's too vague. I know now my mom's ancestry on that side, they were called the Fuller people. I take that. So I'm a Fuller person and whatnot. And I got a lot of evidence. I took, okay, it was 23andMe also. All these confirmed I'm Fulani. In the story, I'm Fulani. And that's my heritage. And I'm also got Amazigh as well. I'll put that in the chat for those who do not know what jet match. So you can start to get that in there. Yeah, okay. This is the company right here. So those who, you have to get your DNA done somewhere else. You take your samples, which is you could take it out of 23andMe or whatever the situation, and then send it over to Jet Match. In about 2 days, you'll get a whole chart, really deep down depth analysis of your heritage, breaking it down beautifully, going way back. I found out also, as you heard me say, about the Mozart people who came out of Africa, out of Egypt. They went to Morocco. That's where my Moroccan heritage is coming from that. But this is a beautiful, good company to get your ancestry done. Can we really find out DNA through spit? Yes, there's DNA and everything. Yes, they do that, and they do have it. But I have contention with many of them because they don't give you good, deep analysis. They'll say, okay, we have Mali. They have this. So what group in Mali? You have the Dogon, you have Fulani, you got Bambara, you have Mandinka, you have all kinds, you got Tuareg, you got many different groups there. So who? You don't have that problem with Jet Match. Jet Match will break it down and say Mali, they'll tell you Dogon, Fulani, or they'll say Mauritania, they'll tell you Tuareg and Fulani or whatever the situation would be. You will have that. So you have this fullness now, because as you heard me say, we settled the American part, but the African part has not been settled for many quote unquote African Americans. You got to settle the African part. I settled that. So I'm Fulani American, and that's how I look at myself. Last question. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, no problem, dear brother. Black people and white people in social nature doesn't produce white color from. Yes, we know that this is recessive, and we know the black gene is dominant. We know this as a fact, and also which is a fact now. We know that the birth rate for black folk, we're looking at America, for Hispanics and Asians, is skyrocketing. But we also know that the European Toubab, the American Toubab, are almost hovering around 0%. That means their race is actually dying because they're not producing. They have more people dying than they're producing. We know that the white woman is having a hard time conceiving. But what is funny about this, brothers and sisters, is we see cases of where the white woman married to a white man, right? In Europe and America, they've been married 5, 6, 7 years. They are not having children. Suddenly they break up, and this white girl, the Toubab girl, marries a brother, or she marries an Arab, or she marries a Mexican, and she has children. Or he who was married to a white woman didn't have any children, but suddenly he marries a black woman, he has children. We started to see that, and that's phenomenal. We also see inside the United States now that the marriage rate between the African American man and the white Toubab woman American is skyrocketing. Skyrocketing. Okay, we now see Toubab women getting on TV talking about their love of black men, how they prefer them. We also have other shows I don't look at, but we have other talk shows and other things being written where white women are very aggressive towards black men, and they'll tell you that, and they also go after black women, telling black women also to leave the black man alone because they know you don't want them. I've read all this, and some of it is comical, what's going on now. I saw this one show the other day where this brother was, and I'm not trying to characterize, but I'm just giving the situation. The brother was not a nice looking man. Okay. He was decent, but he was a good worker. He worked very well educated. He couldn't buy a sister even a hamburger from McDonald's. They all got, oh, you look bad. You have big lips, because he had pronounced good West African features. He had some very thick lips. He had big nose, and he wasn't very, very handsome in American standards. This white girl thought he was. See? And so she ended up marrying him. The three sisters who had lambasted him now were very upset. He went to them and said, look, sisters, you didn't want me. You said I was the ugliest man in the world, and this woman took me. So we have a lot of dynamics in that. And we have many scientists say, irrespective, you should not mate. But you know what? White and black have been mixing for over thousands of years. So it's not going to stop. I don't care what you try to say, it's going to happen. And there's a reason for that. In my day, it was not much mixing going on between the white girl and a black man. It was very few. Now, in I look at my grandchildren and my kids' generation, it's different now. We see that. So it's a very strange dynamic that's happened. I ask women in the family to tell me this. Yes, and they passed. Yes, we had that phenomenon of black folk passing for white. We still have that. And that's why this situation, brothers, sisters, we talk about this, and I got to close. The situation of if they try to implement something to deport African Americans, what percentage of African blood is going to be needed for them to throw us out? How about those African Americans who are passing now for white? They will probably tear up their birth certificates or whatever and pass for whites so they wouldn't be thrown out. See, and there's a lot of things to that. And I'll get back to this here. Please check. Okay, where are we at here? Please check out this sister who brought this to attention, and she talked about the African American situation, and she reported it. And this dear sister here is very educated, and I wrote her, as you heard me say, I told her she was Fulani. There's no doubt in my mind she's Fulani, but she gave a good presentation about this idiocy of now there's underlying currents talking about getting rid of us. And we think it's coming from the camp of Biden because they lost the black vote a lot, and so they want to punish. And so there was a talk. But I'm going to tell you something. I wouldn't ignore it. She didn't say to ignore it. She said it's ridiculous. But she didn't tell you also in her film here on YouTube, she didn't say to ignore it. Because now, since it's out, you better keep one eye open to watch this development. Because the racial tensions in the United States is so thick. As our populations begin to grow, we hear in the next decade that the black and brown people will be the most predominant people in America. So I mean, because whites are dying out and they're not producing. So They may do anything to keep that power. That means to throw us out. They might just do that. I don't know, but anyway, you check this sister out and her program, because it was pretty good, which she brought forth and whatnot. So I'm getting close here. I think I just answered everybody's question. So, brothers and sisters, if you like this kind of talk, please subscribe to me, and I greatly appreciate that. And you know, because my talks on Orthodox, I talk about many different subjects that a lot of people don't talk about, and I'll give a lot of analysis to that, and our history. I'm gonna get back to that, especially to Egypt, which we call Kemp, because there's something I need to discuss with you to give you further proof that the ancient Egyptians were black folk. I want to talk about this issue, and every time I say it every week, I want to do it. Something else pop up, like this case here. Our dear sister here talked about the case about African Americans being removed. So I wanted to talk about that and get your opinion on this topic subject. So I think with that said, brothers and sisters, I have to go into prayer because I have obligations as a Muslim. I must, get my prayers done and everything. So I will see you here, inshallah ta'ala, bi'ithnillah, next week's sometime for another segment or some historical talk or something like this. So please be careful out there, brothers and sisters, and thank everybody who showed up today. I really appreciate that. All our people here. Thank you, my dear sister, for showing up. I didn't see your message. Thank you for showing up today. Salam alaikum. Thank you very much, my dear sister, for showing up. And brothers and sisters who showed up today, I greatly appreciate that. And I hope that you continue to show up again. And all questions are welcomed here as long as they're civil. But remember something, brothers and sisters, when you please come to the chat, give your greetings. I don't care what language you give it in. You can give it in Swahili. I don't care. Or you can give it in American English. It doesn't make a difference, but you greet everybody because that's the African way of doing things. That's the way our ancestors did it. And that's the way we're going to do it here on my program. Thanks again for all the people who showed up today. And I greatly appreciate that a lot. I see we have another comment here. Yes, here. Yes, my dear brother, thank you. Shalom alaikum to you as well. And our dear sisters, I fast every year. Oh, thanks. Yes. Oh, yes, Ramadan. Thank you. And we know Ramadan is right around the corner. It's not that long. Because Ramadan is coming close. And that's, of course, a sacred time for us. We have to fast. Those 30 days is rough, especially when you get older like me. I don't like fasting, you know. You know what I mean? I've been Muslim many years now, but, fasting is still really rough, but it's required for us. And I do look forward to Ramadan because you have that special connection with Subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's good, my dear sister, that you are adhering to the tenets and so forth. And again, thanks everybody for showing up today. I hope I didn't miss anybody here. Okay, we got somebody else. Okay, what we got? Okay, yeah. Okay, I think that's it. So, brothers, sisters, till the next time. Okay, wait a minute. I got one more hide a comment. No, I think I got everybody's comments. I just want to make sure. Okay, I think I get everybody's comments. Well, with that said, brothers, sisters, I'll leave you here. Salam alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.